Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special East Anglian Tournament Series Roundup here on BloodbowlLive. We are here not to go through the ADBBL, not to go through Nobble. No, we're here to go through the last tournament in the East Anglian Tournament Series. My name is Chris. I'm joined by Mr. Luke Baggett. We're looking at the Ipswich Classic 3rd edition that took place over the weekend. 36 coaches, all fighting it out with a number of star players and all kinds of shenanigans. Luke, it was a good day. It was lots of star players coming out, big budgets on teams, and lots. Yeah, it kind of delivered, I think, exactly what I thought it would, which was just lots of quite entertaining, intriguing fixtures.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always one of my favorite tournaments, having such a high sort of team value to play around with 1.2 and pretty de-restricted star access. I think there's a couple you banned, sort of the Griffs and stuff like that, but I'd say there was a pretty good showing of a lot of the stars. Have you got the stats up for the number of stars taken?
Yeah, we
That's
can
the thing we
probably
can
have
do
a
now, isn't it?
we can have a
Yeah.
look now. I will everyone can have a sneak preview of the first game we're going to look at, but I will cut back to the stats. If we go to the stats page, oh, I do love this the
Good,
updated
isn't
tour
it?
play stat page. Yeah, I mean, star player wise, there were some restrictions, but I think only for the top 3 tiers. I think tier 4 could take the likes of Griff and everyone else.
Ah, I see. Okay.
But I mean, we had, as we know from the preview show, 5 Scrogs coming along. You've got Fungus, Ripper, the Zote, Creek, Ivan. There was a good selection that came along, and some kind of interesting builds with them. Did you face a Scrog at all during the day?
I didn't. I managed to miss all 5 of them somehow.
I got one Scrog near the end of the day, and I threw a Noblar at his face, which it turns is just the answer to all problems. Why don't we start then? We'll look at some games, and why don't we start with Imperial Nob Ash 3? Let's have a look at one of their games, and I think we'll have a look at their matchup against the Gnomes in Game 3. A 2-1 victory for them. The reason I'm picking out them is because they did win Best Scrog. Apologies to Shane, who I claimed won Best Scrog when we were leaving. Actually, it was the Imperial Nobash 3 that won Best Scrog. And looking at kind of the way this one, it's always difficult with tour play with tournaments because some people log a lot, some people don't log a lot. So it looks like this one kind of just the things that needed to be logged were logged. And Gnome's actually giving Imperial Nobility a good run for their money in this one, and only missing out on the chance to equalize through running out of time at the very end.
You just had to get that one in for Tom, didn't you?
I couldn't resist.
Yeah,
I know
you
he'll
couldn't
be so
resist.
angry at me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Tom had quite a lot of fun with Gnomes, actually. I think actually just generally the Stunty players seem to be having the most fun, which is maybe not surprising. But yeah, and sort of having it's kind of interesting where, typically Stunties are the ones only who take stars, but then them having to face up against stars. I don't know how they sort of did across the board, whether they sort of struggled more having more stars to contend with.
I think Scrog is an interesting one, particularly against gnomes, because you do have the ability, if you can get the assists there, and looking at the team, it was all guard on the bodyguards, so there's a lot of opportunity there with Scrog to be using claws to take down a tree.
Yeah,
One of the trees had block, which would have been more difficult. I think based on how the day went, you would maybe target the bullseye tree, because I think bullseye actually I a lot, and I know a lot of other coaches used bullseye a lot over the day. So but Tom bringing his own star players as well and having a good 50-50 day. The Imperial Nobility side had a pretty strong day with 2 wins and a loss, so finishing high up in the table. And that loss coming to someone who finished very high up indeed, which we'll get to in a bit. Let's start at the bottom then as far as prizes go, because we want to shout out all the people who got a prize in one form or another. And being Blood Bowl Live, we wouldn't not shout out the wooden spoon winner. And I think it is probably worth talking about the wooden spoon winner because they took goblins. There were lots of goblin coaches there. There were 4 goblin coaches, 2 of which took all ball and chain builds. He went for Fungus and Bomber Dribble Slot and got, I would say, probably a bit of a tough draw as far as kind of facing some very agile teams, Elven Union and Wood Elves, both getting big scores. And Nurgle being a team that, with that disturbing presence, can make things like the Bomber a bit trickier to kind of be able to really nail. So maybe a
Stand
very
firm with Fungus as well. Tough to get through that.
Do we think then for these goblins it was a tough kind of start and then very kind of tough draws?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, let's have a look at the games. So I'm just starting at the bottom. Kind of not a huge amount of removals against, well, none against Nurgle. He got 4. Well, no, yeah, only 1 against the Elven Union. So sort of the bomb. Well, or I mean, again, tour plays maybe slightly cursed with not recording bombs or things like that for removals. But either way, it's sort of looking in every game he wasn't really able to get those removals maybe he was hoping for. Which, when you're building quite a giggy goblin build, that's sort of what you want, to be able to get those, sort of remove enough players to make it so you can just almost walk in the touchdowns. But I just think, yeah, unfortunately with who he came up against, couldn't get those removals.
A shout out to his opponent in game 2, who was Carl with his Elven Union side, who I've immediately lost. Here they are, who did come home with best painted. If you've seen the Elven Union, this Elven Union team, I think he's also played them as high elves before in tournaments. So, do take a look. They are a very impressive looking side. Our wooden spoon winner is in the chat saying, got a lot of KOs. They just all happened to come back. Unfortunate draw and unfortunate dice, I think it sounds like. But hopefully a good amount of fun with the goblins because, like you said, Stunties did have some fun games out there.
And obviously the best looking trophy to go home with.
Absolutely the best looking trophy as well. Absolutely, completely true. Let's make our way up the table then, and the next person in the standings who narrowly avoided the wooden spoon through bonus points and through a love of fouling is Flumps and Mr. Scott Norman, one of the coaches who took a 3 ball and chain build. And I think the key and most entertaining part for me for Goblin's team is the 3 pile driver goblins really built to foul in this one. We know from leagues and we know from playing Scott at other tournaments, he loves a foul, he loves a gimmick, and he absolutely went for it, bringing home I think 38 fouls over the space of the 3 games. And all of his games were pretty high scoring as well.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, I mean, how did you find playing him? So, I mean, as you're here, we might as well look at your game, which you were also doing some sort of stunty shenanigans too. How was the triple ball and chain to play against?
And
were they all fielded at the same time?
So he didn't field them all at the same. I never had 3, I don't think. Okay. Playing Scott is always good fun. This might be one of the most fun games of Blood Bowl that I can remember having, because we were both just absolutely committed to the stunty nonsense. Ball and chains are terrifying, particularly when I'm turning up with 6 strength 5s and you're still facing 3 strength 7s. It's pretty terrifying. Bullseye is an absolute killer for ball and chain, because
That's what I was
you know,
going to ask. Was that how you dealt with it?
Yeah, yeah, and it was, it was sidestepping Noblars to get next to Fungus, and then walking up and sort of just picking them up and shoving them in the ball and chain's face was kind of a tactic. Scott's in chat. He said, "Yeah, at one point I did fumble a throw which landed on Fungus that took him out of the game, which was filthy." So yeah, and Scott, I think Scott, we both came. I think we came away with 21 fouls between us in this game. So a good chunk of them, and a good matchup for Scott because he's got the pile driver goblins, and those goblins get two
Yeah,
dice on all of the
2D.
Noblars.
Yeah.
So it's a good matchup. Looking at just interested to look at his 5-2 game, which I think was the highest scoring, probably the highest scoring game of the day. And his opponent, the New Elven Patriots, was one of the two coaches who tied for most touchdowns, I believe, as well. So a very good end to the day for their Elven Union side. They had the Zoe on their side, so they were one of our star player teams. And I guess if you're going into the last game looking at most touchdowns, you're against someone who mainly just wants to foul against you. It's get as many as you can, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think I just quickly counted 15 fouls on Scott's side there in that game, which is just nearly one a turn, which is pretty fun. I know he's done better than that, but still pretty good.
I think that's his
Yeah.
biggest score in the of the day, like of each game. I think 15 is the most he got in one game.
Yeah, and I think he's saying in chat, and I caught up with him at the end, but he managed to break the ball out, and on that turn 16, go from his end zone to the opponent's end zone in a turn, which is always an amazing touchdown to score. And yeah, Doom Diver putting in work, definitely.
A good day, like we said, for the elves, who maybe got fortunate in a way. I don't know whether goblins are a particularly good team for them, but they had two goblin games, one against Scott and one against Andy and his Kesgrave Cutters. Another big score of 4-2. And looking at the, I'm looking at the way that these. Oh no, the Kesgrave Cutters won that game. I got that the wrong way around.
Yeah, other
I
way around.
I do apologize, Gary. So maybe some goblin revenge happening then in the game against Scott.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. While we're on stunties, why don't we stay in the stunty world? And no surprise, maybe to a lot of people who, if you've played in tournaments in and around Suffolk, if you've met at tournaments elsewhere, Don't Call Me Flossie brought ogres to this one and had a very good day. I had stunty wise coming away with the stunty cup, being our top placed stunty coach. Looking at the coaches he played as well, he's played some very tough, very experienced coaches throughout the day. Lots of stars on their tour play names. Looking at his match against Tom Huns, his last game of the day, which was a must win for Tom. Putting up a fight with ogres as you would expect him to do, being so good with stunty teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I heard Tom kind of lamenting about only managing to get 2 casualties here against all of those Noblars, but sometimes the dice just don't play for you. And it looks like they've recorded all these sort of sporadically. But yeah, I mean, Tom took quite a lot of losses there actually with the amount of casuals against him there. And yeah, ogres do have that ability where they can just sort of, with all that mighty blow, and if they're not boneheading, you quickly lose players, even against a relatively high armor team like Tom was playing.
Yeah, he went for 3 block in the build, 2 break tackle to give him a bit more maneuverability. He had 3 rerolls. Didn't go for the rookies like I did in my build. I would imagine that he maybe was. I mean, he didn't take a bullseye, so I think his game plan going into the today was very different to mine. Possibly why he's done better, but a good showing for Don't Call Me Flossie, and another to add to his what I think is a big growing shelf of stunty cups throughout the region. Let's talk about Tom Huns then while we're on this page. He came third in this tournament. He's giving himself the title of bridesmaid at the minute, having had a lot of almosts. And we should say as well, anyone who wasn't there at the day, top three coaches were separated by tiebreakers, all on identical points. That's how tight it was at the top. But he came away with 3 wins from 3, Nurgle, High Elves, and Ogres being his opponents, and 3 very strong coaches. So he hasn't had a bad day at all, just unfortunate. Do you think, looking at his build, is there anything you think he could have looked at differently to either get more touchdowns or get more casualties to get those bonus points, or even keep more clean sheets? Any one of the 3, one more touchdown, casualty, or clean sheet would have got it for him.
Yeah, that's it. It's tough. So he didn't take any stars, unless I'm being blind.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, no star. Which I think there was a sort of common theme at the top end of not actually taking many stars. But yeah, I mean, maybe it is just a play style thing rather than going for that 2-1 win, or a bit more of the, because all of his victories were 2-1, and in that you always concede a touchdown to give yourself a sort of chance to score back quicker. And if it's, if one of those was a 2-0 or even a 1-0, that would have been that extra bonus point, which might just be a sort of play style thing to play around with. But yeah, we all know how good kind of OWA are performing at the moment. I can't really see any big changes on that sort of skill list to change there.
It's tough, isn't it? Because there's not. I've been in that position in a tournament where it is just on the bonus points, and you've got 3 wins from 3. There can't be a lot more expected of you. You've won every single game, so it is tough for Tom, but he's very good. He's a multiple league champion. He has won tournaments. No doubt, he will win more. Let's not go to second place. Instead, we are going to have a look at our local NAF rep, who walked away with most casualties from the day. Scrolling down, here we are with the Chicago Blackhawks. I think when we were looking through this on the preview, looking at the team, it felt like a very solid build skill wise. Mighty blows, guards, tackles, block on the train troll, a dirty player for luck, and 3 rerolls. Felt very strong. And looking at his opponents, he's possibly got maybe not fortunate, or maybe fortunate with an awful lot of strength 8 or below in the games he's played against that maybe helped him get towards that most casualties.
Yeah, the armor rate can be sort of, we all know, as a complete glass cannon sometimes. And, he only had 3 mighty blow, which, considering, some people had far more than that. It's sort of nice to see that casualties poking through there. Yeah, I mean, Norse definitely can be quite fragile. Halflings, I'm sure, are some of the most fragile, and Skaven, if you get lucky, can get a lot of armor breaks through that. So yeah, so I mean, casualties is always a bit of an odd one where, ultimately it does come down to rolling quite well, but you have to be able to play in the way to set up those blocks so you're getting those casualties in the first place. So you have to play aggressive to kind of try and win those.
A very impressive 7 and 5 casualties in his game against Norse in game 1. I mean, he didn't come away with as many casualties as the Norse side, but still getting 5 and still getting a draw when your opponent's then got 7 against you. This is just a very impressive looking scoreline for me, because they've both survived enough to continue to score against each other, while
It's interesting
having
to have
many players.
14 players too. It's kind of like a heavy fouling build, maybe, was what he was thinking. Which, yeah, like it's kind of interesting that rather than one big star player being a risk of losing that.
Yeah, so he will have been able to, even in that game where he got seven casualties against him. He's not taking an APOC, but he would have still been fielding a good number of players to combat the north side. Let's have a look. Let's go from a most casualties to another most touchdowns, because like we said, it was a tie at the top. The delightful dirty golden browns, our very own Mr. Scott Bryant, taking that away with a 3-0 win in his last game. If I look at this and I know it's game three of a tournament, and you look at the games that both of these coaches had going into this, it does look like a scoreline of two coaches who went in with a goal that they achieved. Because
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, 3-0 for the Skaven, taking away most touchdowns, 5-1 on casualties, taking away most casualties. It's the game that both of them would have wanted, right?
I think so, yeah, definitely. And I'm sure Scott will be completely chuffed in getting the most touchdowns, which I think he's been doing pretty consistently over the past few tournaments, or at least definitely contending it. So yeah, very, very well done to him.
Looking at his other games, it wasn't a big number that won most touchdowns in the end, because a 1-1 draw in that first game against Amazons with the Zotes. But 4-1 and 3-0 getting him enough touchdowns in order to take the title. We did cascade prizes. We did cascade awards to make sure as many people took things home as possible. And I think our second place team did very well with the touchdowns themselves. If we find our way to our second base team, the Dark Side Stabbers, the Dark Elf side from Nick. I think looking at this roster, it was interesting to see that he had taken assassins and no runners, because now obviously they don't have as many blitzers in the team. Also took away got 4 very, very good results across the day. And actually looking at his results, less kind of getting those bonus points through the clean sheets and through the touchdowns. So it's interesting to see where the bonus points have come from differently over our top 3, actually, to get them to that level.
Yeah, and I think you kind of it's kind of nice because that sort of rewards the different styles of play. You know, whether you're leaning into bash and trying to get bonus points that way, you know, control and having far fewer touchdowns scored against you, or being this kind of aggressive, high scoring, agile team. And it's kind of really nice. It's sort of balanced out across all of them. But yeah, kind of just a solid Dark Elf team, I think, is, you know, no big stars or kind of tricky bits to it. It is interesting you didn't take the runners, and obviously it's worked in this instance, but I'd be curious to hear what other people think about how they would have built this Dark Elf team.
Yeah, the runners are interesting because the skills they come with are not skills you would choose on your passing piece normally. Um, and I wonder whether the kind of addition of punt, whether it's just not seen as very um, very helpful. I thought there were a couple of times in the day yesterday at the weekend where I felt that having punt I could have utilized quite nicely, but I
But is
don't.
that because you were throwing Noblars where the
Probably
ball
because
punt
I
was
was
going to go? Yeah.
yeah, probably because I would rather punt it, throw the Noblar, have the Noblar crash land, not lose the ball, and then get up and get the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. There we are. Another tactic for the stunty nonsense. A very good day for Nick. His last game against the Tomb Kings is a game that you can watch over on BloodbowlLive. You can see this fixture in all its glory. A 2-1 victory for the Dark Elves. Justin he didn't come away with a prize. He actually was in the running for most fouls at one point. He was really going for it. I think after the first round, he had actually he was up there with the second most fouls. He came third overall with 21. for the Tomb King. So clearly happy for some zombies to be just out there and disposable to kind of just remove players.
Yeah, and yeah, he sort of kind of built the team for it with the kind of extra couple of subs available, but still managing to fit Cheney in as well. I guess Tomb Kings, since their update, they're kind of a million build to get everything now. So anything, any extra cash you give them, sort of gives you that sort of disposable star players or subs and things. Um, and yeah, in his games, did he record as he played? Kind of. I was just curious about how many sort of touchdowns came from Cheney, or whether he was using that as a more sort of aggressive piece than. Yeah, it looks that way. Only kind of one touchdown by Cheney.
Yeah,
Oh,
scrolling
two. Sorry. Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Is
So it's
that
kind of fairly balanced, but
is that the Tomb King tactic actually? Now that, like you say, if they are a little bit cheaper to build, you can get a good amount for your 1 mil because you don't have the pace and you don't have the agility. Is it just removals by any means necessary to clear the field?
yeah, potentially. I mean, there's clearly well, based on the stats from Justin, how he's sort of been playing them, which I quite like. I think it's quite a fun way of building them. And I wonder how it'd look, kind of swapping, adding some extra dirty players or stuff in those skeletons, whether that would kind of skew that removal a little bit more, but which might be something to consider for future.
Before we look at our winner, it would seem wrong to have you on, Luke, without a little look at how your day went. Coming away with a 50-50 day. How did you find this Varag build for the Orcs? There were two Orc builds, one with Varag, one with Ripper, I believe. How did you
That's right.
find this particular setup?
I think it was fun. I think if I had another shot at it, I might drop something to get an apothecary. Because I had Varag off the field probably even more than he was on the field over the 3 games. So I kind of didn't get to test him out fully, but they kind of I didn't manage to break any extra armor with his re-roll, but the kind of threat of him is quite good in you can kind of hold him back and keep him as a sort of mobile blitzer, which is coming in with 2 dice pretty much wherever. So that kind of went well. I think I don't know. Yeah, orcs are fun to play in tournaments, but I think they would have done better probably without Varag and just more skills. I think that's what it felt like I was missing. Um, but yeah, no, it was really fun. All the opponents were really good, and getting to play Dean was kind of really great as well, which I'm sure we're about to move on to. All
Yeah.
the way from Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be our next step. Was our champion for the day, Dean, from Australia, bringing his Amazon side. Just a reminder of the Amazon roster that he had here: 2 Python warriors, block and wrestle; 2 Jaguar warriors, block and guard; and so I've got that all wrong. 2 Piranha warriors, 2 Jaguar warriors, Python warrior with block, Eagle warrior with block, line woman. And then I think, and I don't know whether it is the key thing, you can tell me how powerful it was throughout the day. He's got 12 players in this roster, took 1 reroll, and then took the Halfling Master Chef for 300,000. How much did that play a role in your game, and how much do you think that kind of swung things in his favor as the day went on?
Yeah, so this is quite interesting. So I caught up with him at the end of the day to kind of congratulate him, and he mentioned to me that the only reason he took Amazons and a Halfling Master Chef was because there was no big guys, and he didn't then have to kind of squeeze a star player and a big guy into a tiny travel case. So
Okay.
it was purely logistics. The reason he took Amazons, and it just worked. Um, so in our game it had a really big impact, but that was sort of worsened by pouring rain, which meant I missed ball pickups by 1, 4, or 5 times, and then not having the rerolls to sort of come back from it made that really difficult. And he said it basically happened in all of the games. Like one drive, it was really impactful, and the other one didn't hit anything off it. But I think that's kind of all you need is one really, really solid drive to then not be able to come back from. So I think it worked really well in this instance.
After your game, he went on to play Chaos Dwarfs. Another clean sheet, a 1-0 victory, tight on the casualties on this one. And in the final game, his final must-win fixture was up against Shane. A 1-0 victory again over the humans. Some very tight games then played out by this Amazon side. And I think other coaches also kind of said the removing of rerolls, particularly with Amazons, because they come with all of those built-in dodge rerolls, and then things like block and wrestle protecting you in other senses. It's not as much like you don't really need them as much, and then you're stopping your opponent having them. Being such a
Yeah,
kind of powerful
I
tool.
think that's true. Yeah, and sort of, you're basically fishing for a 1 in 6 to get an Amazon down a lot of the time. And like I just didn't get any casualties against Amazon, even though they're all armor 8, and I had 5 mighty blows on the team, 4 or 5 mighty blows on the team. So yeah, it's a kind of, it does play itself out, and Amazons are still a really solid team to start with.
So that is that's all of our prize winners over the Ipswich Classic. Before I figure out, because I'm somewhat underprepared, how to show the standings for the for eats after the tournament. Any thoughts on the rule set now that it has been and gone? There were some people who were slightly worried about the star players being completely unleashed, and how that may have an effect on the day. What did you think, sort of rule set wise? Do you think that the number of star players was kind of a hindrance, or actually sort of didn't have the impact maybe as expected?
Yeah, I really liked it. I think you probably don't want every single tournament, say if it's Eats, you don't want every single tournament like this. But I think having 3 or 4 throughout would probably be quite refreshing, because I think there's a risk with how the sort of Blood Bowl meta is at the moment to kind of pigeonhole teams into only one solution. And I don't think we saw a single duplicate team, maybe bar the triple ball and chain shenanigans, but I think it kind of gives far more toys for everyone to play with, basically. And we're all there to have fun and enjoy playing the teams with painted up and the kind of wacky stars and tactics from that. And it's sort of I guess I think it added to the game rather than took anything away. Um, so yeah, I think, yeah, I think it's probably still my favorite tournament rule set, and just having that extra bit of treasury as well really helps for that too.
Yeah, I think pleased with I'm pleased with everyone's reaction to it. I think there was a bit of a feeling in the build up to it and on the day. It felt like so many tournaments are banning so many star players that it's just nice to have the opportunity to use as many of them as you can or as you want to for a day in a competitive way, because I think it is also, I think there is a different, maybe not different, but I think it is a kind of a skill to be able to use them, because it can be very easy to take a star player into your roster and rely on it heavily because it is your star player, when actually you are sacrificing something else in a normal team build in order to put them in. So you do have to play differently, and to be successful with them, you do still have to know what you're doing and know how to adapt and bring that player into the team. It's like if you signed Lionel Messi for Ipswich Town, there's no guarantee it's going to be a success. You're just putting someone very good into a team that is of a different level. So yeah, I'm glad it was enjoyed. I agree. If every tournament was like that, I think you would get fatigue. But I think everyone needs. I think everyone should embrace a tournament like this every once in a while to just let all that pent up start playing us out.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the standings for Eats then. Magic Dave sits at the top currently, having 3 scores against his name, with Lil Bread Boy at just underneath him. On a similar points, those are the only 2 coaches, it looks like, with 3 scores to their names. John, Vacant, Legion UK, the GC, Joseph, all hot on the tails with 1 tournament point score yet to be registered. And a lot of new people jumping in at their first one, their first Eats tournament, and their first scores on the board as well, which is good to see. We will also have a look at the stunty side of it. Don't Call Me Flossie sitting comfortably at the top there, a big gap to second place in the stunty standings. And if you look at third all the way down to 14th, there's a lot of tournaments left to go, and there is a lot of stunty points yet to be had. As long as Don't Call Me Flossie is not there, you might be able to get a good chunk of those points. So it is still all to play for. We're only a few tournaments into this brand new series, and still a long way to go. I think we'll call it there. That's a look at all of our prize winners. That's a look at the Eats standings. That's a look at the Ipswich Classic 3rd edition, which I'm sure will be back next year for a 4th edition. Give me a couple of weeks and I'll figure that out. Thank you very much, Luke, for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for joining along. We will be back to do another preview, another roundup, and some more live games for some more of Eats tournaments. So keep an ear out. You can also catch other live games on twitch.tv/BloodbowlLive. They'll all be up on YouTube afterwards. Our roundups of league coverage of the ADBBL and our roundups of Nobble up in Nottingham as well, all there for you to see. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.